I'm Jim Collison and live from Omaha, Nebraska. The Gallup office is in Singapore as well as in the Philippines. This is Gallup's Call to Coach, recorded on July 12th, 2016. Call to Coach is a resource for those who want to help others discover and use their strengths. We have Gallup experts and independent strengths coaches share tactics, insights, and strategies to help coaches maximize the talent of individuals, teams, and organizations around the world. If you have questions during this live webcast, we have a chat room that's available for you right below the main video window down there. We just have you love to have you log in. Best way to interact with us during the program. If you are listening to the recorded version or have questions about custom strengths coaching solutions for small, medium, or large organizations, send us an email. coaching@gallup.com, or use the contact form right there on the live page. Don't forget to visit the Gallup Strengths Center. That's just gallupstrengthscenter.com. For all your coaching resources and StrengthsFinder training needs, you can catch the video on both streaming and now downloadable audio for offline listening. You can really, the best way to consume these programs now is through our podcast app or through any podcatcher. You can recapture the time on a train, in a plane, or in a car, or as Saurav knows, stuck in traffic. There in the Philippines, you can recapture that time and listen to it while you're traveling. The way to do that and all the links to get that done is at the coach's blog, coaching.gallup.com. Saurav Atri is our host today. He works as a strengths evangelist out of our Singapore office, although he has been a world traveler and all around the world. Saurav, it's been a while since we had you on Call to Coach. Welcome back.
Thank you, Jim. It's really good to be back. It's been almost close to 8 months, but in this 8 months, it's been such an amazing journey of imparting strengths across the world. And I would say this is bringing positivity to the world. I think the world needs to be slightly more positive, and this is the way to get there. And now I was recently in Manila, and I think that's one country that's really making leaps and bounds in terms of taking strengths to another level. And today we are very fortunate to have one of our, part of amongst our pioneers in the Philippines. He himself is a strengths evangelist, somebody who drives strengths across organizations. One of the first coaches within Philippines, who's a Gallup certified coach amongst the first cohort of coaches there. Alex Araneta, welcome to the session today, the Call to Coach Southeast Asia edition.
Yeah, good morning, Saurav, and hi, Jim. Pleasure to meet you. I'm so glad to be here.
Let me also introduce Alex, and his stalwart of a career. Alex has over 20 years of experience in the corporate world in the field of brand management, having worked for various FMCG companies such as Hershey's, URC, and RFM. He's also moved into consumer durable companies, and he was VP for Sales and Marketing. And then in 2008 onwards, he's been in the corporate training world as a CEO of Inspire Leadership Consultancy, doing trainings such as Zig Ziglar, John Maxwell's, and also he's a Gallup certified strengths coach. He's also recently formed Catalyst 360 Training and Consultancy Company, and he calls himself a Chief Catalyst, and also, like I said, one of the first Gallup certified strengths coaches in the Philippines since February of 2015. He's also added, the Gallup Entrepreneurial Strengths, EP10, as part of his repertoire, and also the Certified Marshall Goldsmith Associate Coach. He is a regular columnist at the Philippine Star, where his column Success Stories appears quite regularly as well. He's coached over 1,500 corporates across various companies, primarily in the food, retail, and the BPO companies division. And we'd love to hear more from him, all his experiences and all these insights he's gained in coaching so many people across. Alex, great. We'd love to hear your strengths journey, and we'll start that off by knowing what are your top 5.
Okay, well, my top 5, my number 1 is context. My second is empathy. Then I have harmony, belief, and then responsibility.
Beautiful.
How about that?
How have you been introduced to the whole strengths, philosophy, and tell us more about how you've been inducted into this world?
Well, it's I call it by accident, then actually divine intervention. You see, this was in about 2014. It was in October. A client asked me if I could do a strengths workshop, and which was going to happen sometime in March of April of 2015, and the client asked me if I could do it, and I said, yeah, sure, I can, because I read the book actually, and I said, maybe I can do something about that. But he goes, but we're looking for somebody who's certified to do it, and so what I actually did is I checked the Gallup website, and I found that there was a course in Singapore in January of 2015 for the certification. So I immediately went for that, where I met you, Saurabh, not knowing that when I did attend, the certification, that it would actually forever change my life, and that I'd become actually an evangelist for this. So what happened was so I did the workshop in March, and then after that I said, okay, so what's next? So I just to give you a brief background, my company does a lot of we're really into corporate training, and so we have a lot of in our database a lot of corporate executives. So I was able to do about maybe 2 public workshops for strengths, and basically what I just did was really just try to let people know about strengths, because one of the things I discovered when I started out last year was that they would all lump in strengths with the other personality assessments like MBTI, DISC, and so I realized that I kind of needed to really make people aware and educate. And so what I did is I actually, like an evangelist, I basically just spoke in keynotes wherever people would want to listen to me. I did one-on-ones, and fortunately there were already some companies who eventually got into the bandwagon. Then I realized that I can't do it on my own. So at that time I was looking, who are the other coaches? And so this was sometime maybe I'd say about June or July of last year. And at that moment, this was before the first certification here in the Philippines. So there was only about, I think, 4 certified coaches. And so I pulled them all together, and we actually created our own group. We called ourselves strengthcoach.ph. And to this day, that's what we've been doing. We've been really trying to reach out to others, primarily in the corporate market, though, on telling them about their strengths. And then a few months later that's when the Strengths Council. So after the first certification here in the Philippines, which you were part of, we all now banded together, and we created now our own council, and the council is formed, and we're doing in a span of a year and a half. It's amazing and how there is really great interest and awareness now beginning to rise up for the strengths movement here in the Philippines, and I'm really glad that I kind of was one of the pioneers in being able to do that, and I'm still doing it, of course. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And also, like I said, the strengths community in Philippines is one of the strongest we've seen. We call them the magical group of people who are truly transforming the world. So Alex, we'd love to hear from you. Tell us more about the stories you've had, the experiences you've gained of coaching individuals, and the kind of impact that is created in your life and their lives.
Well, okay. I always believe that it has to start first within your home. And I think the first impact that I had was with my then 13-year-old son. He took the test, and his top 2 was significance and relator. And I remember his name is Elian. And I asked him, one day I said, Elian, as a young teen, what are the issues? What are your concerns? And he shares to me, and he tells me, Dad, I want to make friends in school and elsewhere, but I kind of don't know how to make friends, right? When he's and so I asked him, okay, so what's the big deal with that? Well, I want to be accepted. I want to be popular. So right off the bat, when he was saying that, I could already see his themes, blurting out, significance blurting out, and his struggling was his relator theme being there, And, so I basically, by doing that, I was able to ask him, okay, a very simple question. I said, who are the most important people for you in the world right now? And he basically said, of course, family. And so I said, okay, what do you think your family would say about you? And he said, well, obviously, they love me, they care for me. Okay, would that help if you put if you anchor your significance over there? And then he goes, yeah, I guess so, yeah. So I said, okay, so why don't we do the name, claim, and aim? I said, why don't you now, next week, because that was a Saturday, I said, why don't you now, when you go back to school, why don't you try now approaching 5 people, say hi, hello, and see how it works out. And the next weekend, get back to me, and let's see how it turned out. And so the next weekend happened, and I asked him, Elian, okay, so how are you? He gave me a really big smile. And he said, you know what, Dad? It didn't turn out as bad as I thought it would be. See? And, for me, this is why it's so transformational, because the mere fact that I know my son's themes is I know now how to purposely, how do we say, lead him. So like whenever we're in a crowd, I make sure I pull him in, because he's not going to start the conversation. He's just going to stay in the corner. So I definitely pull him in the conversation. I introduce him to all the people, and bringing him into the conversation, so his significance goes up. And I realized also that because he's in a school where there are only actually 15 students in the class, and he's actually the class president, and he's actually one of the class valedictorians. And I said, he was just right in the right environment. That's why I totally subscribe to it. When you're in the right environment and you're able to really harness your strengths, your talents over in the right environment, you're going to flourish, because he's flourishing. And I'm so glad that inadvertently he was in the right environment. So that's one story. Actually, I still have more.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
We love to hear more. We love to hear, and you work quite closely with, the food business, the hospitality business. Tell us more
Sure.
how you've taken all these learnings, both from your personal life and the professional life, and being able to apply that and help managers in the food
Okay.
business to really thrive.
Well, there's a particular incident. She was actually the HR manager of one of the top food chains here in the Philippines, and her top theme was actually achiever. And during the course of the coaching conversation that we had, one of the biggest discovery that she had was that while at work, her achiever was on overdrive. It was super balcony, super mature. She's able to get things done. She's able to really help people even get things done. But she realized that while she was, great at work, her home life, she said, I don't get that same sense when I'm at home. And she always felt that she was actually an achiever at home. And she realized after she found out about her themes, the reason for that basically was, you see, she came from a failed marriage. See, and the marriage apparently really affected her. That her self-confidence really kind of went down on her, and so her relationships, even with eventually at home and even at work, kind of was affected. But now, not knowing she had achiever in her, kind of released her, because she goes now that I'm not just here at work. I'm here. It's actually also I'm here. It's evident also with me. It's just in my basement, even here in my relationships here at home, at work, and now I can be now intentional and purposeful for doing that. And wow, that was a very aha moment for her.
Beautiful. And what in your coaching style, what techniques do you use to really get people to reach that aha moments, Alex?
Well, the beauty of for me, for strengths again, is it gives you really a language for you to be able to understand, your pattern of thought, feeling, and behavior. And for me, that's what makes it unique from other, I'd say, coaching tools. And I basically just focus on that. My mentor would always tell me this. He said, Alex, remember this. Focus is the new IQ. Okay, and I said, okay, what do you mean? You just learn how to focus on what you're at and work on that. And I took that to heart. And basically, is here in the Philippines, it's well, it's very big. It's a very big aha when the coaches realize that A, they cannot be somebody that they're not, and B, that they can actually be a better version of themselves. That just really resonates intensely for them. And so when I basically just go through the process on how their themes are working out, where it's at, whether it's in its basement or balcony stage, that just brings their realizations at a whole new level. And so I basically use two things. I just basically use focus, and the second is I'm not sure. I guess it's a worldwide thing, but the second thing that I always have to make sure that I need to remind myself is this: it's not about me, but it's actually about my coachee. And so I guess it's my empathy and my harmony that's at work there. But people say I come across as a very authentic person. So, and I feel that that's one of the key things when you need to coach your people. You need authenticity. People like their coaches to be real, to be not perfect. And I guess that's one of the things that I come across with. They've said that because to be honest with you, is I think my first 20 or 30 coaching sessions were all free. I didn't ask for anything to be paid for, and I guess that helped out in the authenticity angle. And then later on, when out of those 20 or 30, when about more than half of them started, you know what, we kind of want to engage you and we're willing to pay, I said, oh, I must be doing something right then. Yeah.
Tell us more on that. That's a really powerful kind of statement you made, that you started off with 25 coaching sessions, and then later on they called you back for more coaching sessions. They were willing to pay you for it. So what transformed, what changed for them that really helped them buy into this philosophy and are willing to invest money as well?
Well, first and foremost is just to give you a bit of a background is, one of the reasons why, again, it was divine intervention for me in getting into strength was, I always considered myself a trainer or a mentor, but I always struggled in being a coach. I love dishing it out, right? But when I went through the certification and I finally became a strengths coach, I said, you know what, I need to change my paradigm shift. And so I needed to practice, and that's the reason why anybody who wanted to be coached, I coached for free, and so I didn't come across as an expert. You see, I just came across as I think a friend who asked a lot of questions. See, and one thing I discovered was that, people love to talk about themselves. And people think they understand themselves, but in reality, they actually don't really understand many things about themselves. And so my role was basically just to kind of clarify things for them. And I guess that was the reason why they eventually wanted to engage me, is because I basically hit a chord where a blind spot, if you see it. I was able to identify a blind spot for them. And one thing is this: most of the coaches that I've had are not, how do we say, are not top management. Okay, this is all corporate people, mostly high potentials, and up to maybe supervisor and manager levels. And one of the greatest things that they've learned from strength is basically using my own themes and talents, I can be able to achieve my goals or objectives. In other words, I don't need to follow a stringent, do's and don'ts, or a methodology to be able to get to where I want to go. In other words, just using what's natural to me, I can achieve that. And they loved it. They loved it because it was very natural and innate for them. And I guess it's partially the fact that I was the first one to be able to, show that to them was I think maybe why the buy-in to me happened, I guess.
At what moment do you see them, become believers? What was that tipping point for you?
It wasn't so hard because even in the first session they basically agree with their teams. It's usually on the second session, because on the second session is where I usually talk more about the balcony and basements. And that is where they're able to realize that, it can be same situations, but in the same situation, they can either be in the balcony or in the basement. And usually it's at the second session that's where, I guess the transformation accounts. And yeah, that's another point that I'd like to kind of stress, was because I've heard it about maybe 4 or 5 times from my coaches that, what you're sharing to me is not information. What you're sharing to me is actually transformational. Sorry to sound so cliche, but I was very pleasantly surprised by hearing comments like that. Is because basically because it's all about themselves.
And in terms of coaching managers, especially in the food business, how is that different from coaching in BPOs or other industries? And how does the transformation happen there?
It's very similar in the sense that, okay, when you look at the domains between a BPO person and a restaurant manager in a food chain, they're usually very high on executing. They're also pretty good in relationship building, but they're not very high in influencing. And one of the things that I'm able to share to them is this: okay, maybe because for your current role, you'll be okay. But as you move higher up the ladder, you need to kind of heighten up your influencing domain, or you need to direct your themes towards more on influencing, and again, for them that's a big aha, because they agree. You see, at their particular role, they're basically just tasked to do the job. They don't really have a lot of decision making, but and that's the challenge, is because as they move up the ranks, obviously they need to now do some decision making, and they need to now to do, they have now, to manage or lead people. And basically that's where the coaching actually for me comes in, because um, they find it difficult now to basically lead people, because they were basically just individual contributors, but now that they're leading people and they don't have, basically their talents were all basically focused on just executing and relationship building, not so much on influencing. So that's where the coaching really comes in handy.
And especially in the Philippines culture, tell us a little bit more. You've interacted with individuals and coached individuals from different geographies. How is it different coaching, people from the Philippines?
Well, um, okay, I was counting how many I actually, through my coaching and workshops, I've counted I think about more than 1,500 who've taken the test. And so I've been able to kind of summarize, and I've noticed that those who took the test a lot of the themes that are spring out is high on achiever, high in responsibility, high in strategic, learner, and relator, but very low in discipline. And that actually kind of intrigued me, and I saw that because in working with now the BPOs and the food retail, um, there is a lot of structure in terms of that they put in place, because precisely the comments I get is the Filipinos are very creative, they're very highly relational, but they need to be always boxed in. They need structure and discipline to be able to work effectively. Otherwise, otherwise, they kind of will, go to the left or go to the right, or something like that. And it's interesting because somebody mentioned to me a quotation, which I think I kind of tend to agree. He said, with Filipinos, they thrive on chaos. They thrive on chaos. And I asked why. Because they said, when there is chaos, when there's disorder, there's actually opportunity, right? Because when there's discipline, when everything's, spick and span and orderly, you just follow the line, and so there's no opportunity. And so I said, you know what, that kind of makes sense, huh? That kind of makes sense for us here over there. And I kind of tend to agree. I kind of tend. You've seen the traffic here, so Yeah.
Look at the chaos and find beauty in the chaos. I love that.
Yeah.
Alex, also there's lots of we've got some live coaches listening in, and a few others will listen in after the recording. What advice would you have, especially to the ones who kind of struggle from taking it to the first coaching conversation to the next coaching conversation? What advice would you have to offer to them?
Well, I'll just echo what I actually said earlier. Is I think it's really it's again two things. It's first, it's who you are, and then what you say. So when I say who you are, is personally, from what worked for me, again, is being very authentic, being very real. I love to share. I usually start my conversations by actually sharing about myself. And somebody also said this. People are buy in. People love to buy, but they don't like to be sold to. So I don't really hard sell them, and so I just basically tell them what my personal strengths journey was and how it is right now. And I don't claim I paint a picture of being a real person, not perfect. I still have my flaws. I'm still learning, actually. And usually what I tell them is this: the only difference between you and I is that I'm a kind of ahead of you in the strength journey. And so what I'm sharing, or what I'm going through, is basically just sharing to you the road I've been, and asking you some questions, and basically being able to help you out in that journey that I've kind of been ahead of. And I think that's worked for me. that's worked for me. So I guess that's the biggest thing that I'd say. Yeah.
And for people who want to get into the strengths bandwagon, people who want to absorb this philosophy and they are kind of tentative right now, not knowing what lies ahead, what advice do you have for them?
Okay, good question. And again, I'll share to you my experiences. That's why I said it was divine intervention. It's because, one of my main purpose in life is I really want to help people achieve their maximum potential. And I discovered that, the only way you can get in to do that is if you get really deep with your people, or, you get deep with people. I still do training, but you don't get deep with training. You don't get deep through, like keynote speaking. You get deep through coaching. And, and that's why, for me, is just go through the, and if you really want to impact people, coaching, and specifically strength coaching is really, the ideal ways, because again, because strength is all about how you're wired up. It's how you're thinking, what's natural to you, and when you really understand that, it's very powerful. It's very powerful. But you need a coach precisely to be able to do that. And again, I think the Jim Clifton said it. There's no magic in the assessment. The magic was really in the coaching. And that's why, for me, that's the key there.
And thank you, Alex, for spreading that magic to so many people out there that you've coached across. Appreciate that.
My pleasure.
Jim, do you have any questions from the audience or from you?
Not from the audience, but Alex, I'll ask you. Sarv and I were talking in the pre-show, and he mentioned, of course, the Philippines is ripe to be maybe a strength-based country. And as you look at the Philippines, what would it take for a whole country to kind of embrace strengths? Is it ready? What kind of seeds would need to be sown? How do you think that'd work if a whole country became strength-based?
Well, for me, there are really two things, and this is what we in the council kind of try to initiate is, and I've seen this also because I've tried to make pitches already. First is in the education. I've seen how powerful strength is in the education sector. It's very powerful when teachers now understand their students' strength, and they can be so intentional and purposeful now. And like for instance, now here in the Philippines we have a new president, and one of the things that he wants to really focus on is education. So that's an immediate alignment over there. And then secondly is over in the I'd say in the corporate sector as well is, you see, like elsewhere in the world, I guess, engagement is a big thing. Over here, I think in the Philippines, it's a little bit higher when you look at it, compare the Philippines to the world standards, but it still needs a lot to be improved on. And again, from my experience is that basically it's this. The management style is still the same here in the Philippines and I guess elsewhere, wherein managers still focus on people's weaknesses rather than their strengths. And so, like again, when we introduce what if you focus on their strengths rather than their weaknesses, it creates such a different paradigm that little by little people are shifting. People are accepting. So I think it's getting to the influencers, and that's basically what we're trying to do. Influencers as far as educators are concerned, and then secondly, captains of industry. So influentials in different industries, even in government eventually. But I think the focus, I'd say, would be education and in the corporate industry.
Do you think, we hear in Southeast Asia, we hear about some countries being more resistant to the idea of focusing only on your strengths and minimizing your weaknesses. Do you think the Philippines, are people more accepting of that in that culture? In other words, they're willing to accept a coach, they're willing to accept the idea of, hey, I am good at these things and I may not be good at others. How do you feel like culturally that's accepted?
I may be biased, but I think the Philippines is a little bit unique in the sense when you look at the Asian setting. You know why? Because we're part Asian. We've been colonized. We're part Asian, but at the same time, a lot of influences is from the Western.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're more accepting of strengths. There's the Asian side wherein you still focus on the weakness and you're just told what you're supposed to do, and you don't say anything. But there's also that other side now in the Philippines wherein I want to be able to do my own thing. I am my own unique self, and let me do my own thing. So that's why I think strength resonates, because it gives really freedom for us over here, to be able to really be very expressive of ourselves, because Filipinos as a general rule are very expressive, and so understanding now their themes is helping them express themselves, I'd say in their proper way, in the right way, right?
Yeah, I think you've got a lot of momentum culturally going for you in that case, and that allows,
Sure.
because of the expression, that allows that to move a lot quicker and a lot faster. Excited for the Philippines and a lot of things that are going on there. I think, when you mention education, I think we're going to need a whole army of coaches who can come in and both work with administrators and teachers and children. And I think you're spot on. I think if we can coach a generation of children, they will grow into workers who understand what they're good at from the very beginning. And so it's a great opportunity for us to do that. Do you feel like the school system is open for that? Are they open for people to come in? Are they open for the strengths movement? Is the school system there ready for something like that?
Well, in the Philippines, they're basically the public and the private school. Public is government operated. Private, obviously, is individual organizations. I think it might take a longer, to get inroads in the public sector, but in the private sector, it's a faster turnaround.
Yeah.
So personally, I think the way to go would be focus on the private sector first.
Good advice. I think in every culture, that's the key, by the way, is when we think about getting into those areas. Very important. JB in chat says parents as well. We have a key to the education system oftentimes is through the parents. At least here in the United States, oftentimes those parents have a tremendous, even in our public system, those parents have a tremendous influence, or can have a tremendous influence on the school systems, just by participating in them. So another great way of reaching families that way. Saurav, anything you want to wrap it with before as we lead out on this?
I would say that just like Alex shared, that it starts from home, and if we can influence the children, it impacts the lives of parents in a powerful way, and then they will go back and take it to the organization as well. And hopefully, with all the fantastic work that Alex is doing, I'm hoping that the influencers are listening in. Maybe the new president is listening in and seeing that this is how the future of Philippines is. Taking something which is so powerful and taking it to the next level by unleashing the potential of human beings through strengths. So if you're stuck in a traffic jam in Manila, I hope you're listening to this and wondering over in your life, how do you unlock the best in you? So ask yourself this question is, do you know what you're good at that you can become great in? If you don't know the answer, go and find out. Strengths Finder will help you at least point you in a direction which help you at least understand what is it that you could be great at. So go out there and make a difference, in your own lives and other people's lives. And thank you, Alex, for making a difference in lives of so many people out there. I really appreciate you coming on from the Philippines, which is hopefully on the verge of becoming a strength-based country, and really leading the way for the world to see what if you bring so many people together who unlock their potential, what that could translate to. So thank you so much for that. And back to you, Jim, to bring it home.
And when they become the world's first strengths-based country, we'll say you heard it here first, right? Here on Call the Coach. So Alex, thanks indeed. Hang tight for 1 second. I'll remind everyone to take full advantage of all the resources we have available at the Gallup Strength Center, just gallupstrengthcenter.com. Send us your questions or comments. If you'd like to be guest blogger on our coaches blog, you can send those to us via email, coaching@gallup.com. Just put guest blogger in the subject line, and we've got some room for some folks who have some ideas on things they'd like to blog about, and our blog is reaching the 1 million view mark here in the next year or so, and so we'll look forward to maybe having you on it. You can also catch the recorded audio and video of this program as well as all the past ones. They're available off of our coaches blog. That's at coaching.gallup.com. If you're interested in becoming a Gallup certified strengths coach, and I pulled up the list at courses.gallup.com. If you ever want to see where all our courses are at, and Saurav, we've gone a little crazy here. I'm thinking like Denver, Bangalore, Seoul, Jakarta, Manila, Atlanta, Boston, Tokyo, Dallas, San Francisco, Chicago, Sydney, Delhi, Irvine, London. That's just one page. So if you're thinking about becoming a coach, certified strengths coach with us at Gallup, most likely, and the newest one is in Johannesburg, in South Africa. We just opened up some new training there in South Africa. If you're interested in doing, in fact, I think that training is going on as we speak right now while they're sleeping, actually as we speak, but they will be waking up here shortly and continuing on with some ASC, our advanced coaches sessions that are there. Those are all on our coaches, the site to get that training. Go to courses.gallup.com. If you have any questions about being certified, send us an email, certification@gallup.com, and or you can use the contact form right there on the live page. Well, by the time you listen to it, the Clifton Strengths Summit will probably be either happening or be over, and hopefully some of you are going to get a chance to join us here in Omaha, Nebraska. We'll probably do it again next year. If you didn't make it this year, you might want to start saving your pennies or whatever local currency that you have to make sure you can come over here. And so that'll be happening July 18th, 19th, and 20th, and I'll announce it first here. We're going to be doing some live podcasting or webcasting from the summit so that you can catch me right here on the live page, and we'll be doing that live. Not covering the sessions, not the keynotes. We'll be interviewing coaches. So if you think you're going to be here and you're listening to it, make sure you track me down, and we'll get you to come out to the live booth, and we'll do some live webcasting right from it. If you found this helpful, we'd ask that you share it. I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and we'll look forward. And Saurav, it's good to have you back on Call the Coach. And with that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.